Hello and welcome back to the Author Roundup, a special segment of the Book Connection Show where we meet up and coming indie authors and talk to them about the recently released books. Welcome back again. This is Ray Walters. Every day, whether we realize it or not, we are sending messages. Some come through our words, others through our actions, our leadership, our service, and the way we show up in the lives of others. But what happens when those messages are unclear, inconsistent, or even harmful? And what could change if our personal, professional, and public communication became healthier, more intentional, and more aligned with the good we hope to accomplish? Today's book, Healthy Messages Demonstrating Power in Life, Work, and Societal Messaging to Transform Our Present and Future, invites readers to think differently about communication, influence, and power. It explores how meaningful messages can shape individuals, strengthen organizations, challenge toxic narratives, and contribute to positive change in the wider community. Joining us today on the Author Roundup is the author of Healthy Messages, Tracee N. Jones. Hi, Tracee. Welcome to the Author Roundup. It's good to have you in today's episode.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
By the way, Tracee, congratulations on getting this book published. This came out sometime in February this year. So, how have things been for you since this book came out?
It's been going pretty well. It's a new adjustment for me being a first-time author, and so I'm navigating that journey, but really looking forward to it.
All right. You actually have an interesting book, and I actually enjoyed reading it, learned a lot from it. Your
Thank you.
book begins with the idea that our words and actions are constantly sending messages. What first made you aware of the power of messaging in everyday life?
Well, for me, it speaks to my professional journey. I started working with individuals early in my career and then started shifting my focus to looking at larger systems, people in leadership and within organizations, and really have valued both sides of those experiences in terms of being aware of the needs of people and how organizations can be more effective, both in communications, but also ultimately in the overall objectives that they have as an organization or a business.
Tracee, you describe healthy messaging as something that goes beyond communication technique. Now, how would you define a healthy message for someone who is hearing that phrase for the first time?
Thank you. Yes, so healthy messages is defined as 10 characteristics within one of the chapters of the book, but I would like to just sum it up by looking at messages as being healthy that are intentional, that are um, effective in achieving outcomes, but not just effective in terms of effective communication, but meaningful and intentional. So they add a lot of value to the lives of other people through words and actions. And that's how I would define healthy messages, generally speaking.
All right. I find this very interesting. One of the ideas in the book is that a person's life itself can be a message. My life can be a message. Your life can be a message. What do you hope readers will notice about the message their own life is sending?
I think that one of the objectives that I have in that regards is people being aware of the fact that they bring everything of all of who they are and all of what they do to their work. And so just being aware of that because oftentimes, well, because naturally we communicate every day, it's very natural to speak and to communicate, and we don't always think of how what we're saying and what we're doing has an impact. And
Yeah.
so, just the idea of being aware that there is significance in what we're saying and doing every day to apply that in their life and work, and also larger societal messaging. I think helps us to be a lot more effective in achieving the outcomes that we really want to achieve.
I want to ask you this next question because I want to focus on one of the book's strong themes. Um, you challenge conventional ideas about power and influence. In your view, what do people often misunderstand about power?
I think power is a really important word. We naturally utilize it every day, but also we desire to utilize it in different ways to help us in our life and work. But I think for many people, when they think of the word power, they think of what's tangible in terms
Mhm.
of finances or influence or um, popularity, even. But I think that power can be those things, but it's more so about the actual definition of the word, which is what I focus on as a framework for the book, which is the ability to produce an act or an outcome. And so being effective in that and using that as the foundation for messaging, whether it be words or actions, to actually achieve what you're intending, especially not just personally, but especially professionally, organizationally, and large in the larger society. So being able to be effective and being able to accomplish what you're intending, and that to me is power. And being able to utilize that to do great things that we're all capable of doing.
All right. The book gives attention to personal messaging before moving into organizational and societal messaging. My question here is, why did you feel it was important to start with the individual?
I think because of what I mentioned a little bit ago about the um, considering everything that we bring to our life and work. And
Yeah.
oftentimes we aren't aware of how we may come across to other people or if we're being as effective as we hope to be or would like to be. And just understanding that that's very foundational to then building upon that organizationally as well as societally. I mean, obviously, those two things can affect individuals,
Mm.
but in terms of being intentional, utilizing your own abilities and being aware of yourself and putting your best foot forward, so to speak, to be able to contribute to the best outcomes within those larger groups.
You write about the importance of wholeness in personal messaging. How can unresolved wounds or unhealthy patterns affect the way people communicate?
So I spent a little bit of time on wholeness and personal messaging initially, because again, what we bring individually is so impactful for larger systems. And I do that because, again, going back to what we bring, but research has shown that individuals who are motivated or inspired to help other people, that a lot of times that is based on their own life experiences. And that research also shows that for individuals in that case, particularly for those who are working in direct practice, for instance, if they have those experiences and they have resolved personal conflicts that have hindered them or impacted them negatively in their life, if that is resolved, then they are a great they're a great resource for being able to support other people who have had those same experiences. On the other hand, when those conflicts may not be resolved or those there are longstanding or ongoing issues, it can impact other people, whether that be through communication, and maybe that is reflected in negative experiences with other people personally or professionally, how people are treated that can relate to even clients or customers' experiences within organizations or businesses. So it impacts so many different aspects of life and work. And so just being aware of that and being able to navigate those challenges and be in a place where you're able to be the most effective is only going to not only serve yourself, but serve others well.
All right. What's also fascinating, Tracy, is that many people struggle with hard words, whether giving feedback, asking difficult questions, or having uncomfortable conversations. What makes a hard message healthy rather than it being harmful?
Well, a difficult message is still healthy when it is productive and effective in being able to achieve intended outcomes. And for a lot of people, they may steer away from conflict, and they, don't want to cause challenges with other people, which is understandable, but it doesn't have to be that way. And if anything, I would advocate for open and honest communication that demonstrates dignity and respect toward others, but doesn't prevent those open communications, because oftentimes what can happen is those issues don't get resolved and they are just ongoing or outstanding. And so being able to find ways to communicate with others in a way that is open and transparent but respectful toward others is helpful and healthy, because you don't want to ignore what's happening. You want to be able to acknowledge what's happening, but
Yeah.
be able to navigate it effectively, I think, is a part of healthy communication. And there are just different ways you can navigate that depending on the situation. But the main objective is being able to communicate openly and honestly, and use that information as a way to inspire hope, but also change and
Mhm.
growth in people, and that can be done by being honest in a healthy way.
When you move into organizational messaging, you discuss mission, systems, branding, and customer or employee experience. Where do you most often see organizations sending um, mixed messages?
For me, that often comes up in how services are actually implemented or
Mm,
um,
mm,
realized. So oftentimes we have an objective on paper of what we want to accomplish, but then there could be a mismatch between what is written and then the services or the activities of an organization or a business. And then
mm,
you don't get the outcomes that you really want to achieve. And so just as an example of that, I'll use the helping profession, just generally speaking, that not only shows up in mismatch in services, but also going back to what we were talking about as far as individual contributions and what we bring to the work that we do.
mm,
If individuals are intend, to provide therapeutic services for others, but their approach isn't therapeutic, their communication is harmful or negative, then it doesn't support the ultimate outcomes that they want to achieve. So for me, that's just an example of maybe mismatch in people, in terms of skill set and abilities with services, but also kind of being able to connect the dots between what is written, what is idealized, but then what is actually implemented in services, and how that translates to outcomes. So for me, it's really important that to have alignment in words and actions, not only personally but professionally, and how that affects services and outcomes overall.
All right. You also write about accountability as part of healthy messaging. Why is accountability so difficult, especially for people or organizations with influence?
Well, I think, well, for one, it is just hard to be able to acknowledge when one has made a mistake. People
Yeah.
do well,
Yeah.
with that more than others. It just
Yeah.
depends. And so I think, for one, that is just hard to acknowledge, especially if you are a leader or someone who has a lot of responsibility, because then, you know, you have to take accountability for when things go wrong or when there are errors or mistakes. But on the other hand, I think when leaders do demonstrate that, it shows a lot of strength, but also it helps to establish trust, not
Mm,
only with individuals within organizations, but for people who may be clients or customers, or other stakeholders who can support or be involved in that organization in some way. So I think
Okay.
it is helpful and necessary to do that for those reasons, but it is difficult to be able to be open and honest about that.
Your book broadens from um, personal and organizational messaging to societal messaging. What role, again, do individuals and organizations play in shaping the narratives of the wider community?
Well, we are, as individuals and organizations, we do have a lot of influence in what is translated societally. And I mean, there are a number of different things that we could all think of, perhaps, that has been shaped by individuals or organizations that has impacted the larger society. And just being aware of the fact that that happens and is happening every day helps you to be intentional and be meaningful in the work
Mm.
that you're doing. And I think one way that we can see the influence of that is, being, for instance, corporately socially responsible is one example of that in terms of just utilizing your resources and the support that you offer within your work to the larger society. It just shows the impact that one can have in a larger way, but also how it impacts decision making every day and within the larger society as well.
All right. I want to ask you this next question because I wanted all of us to think critically about the messages that we consume and repeat. Um, you write about shifting toxic narratives. What are some signs that a message, trend, or narrative may be unhealthy, even if it is popular or widely accepted?
I think when messaging becomes unhealthy or harmful in some way, so for instance, social media in particular is an area that we all navigate, and it can be really impactful and really
Yeah.
powerful. And it can also bring a lot of challenges and impact people personally as well as professionally. And so just being aware of the impact of everything that we do, even within those larger spaces, how it does trickle down and impact us personally and professionally, but also ways that we can advocate for different narratives, even using those very same platforms. I think is helpful to consider. And so I think when we see harmful or toxic narratives in those larger societal spaces, it's an opportunity for us to consider how we want to respond in those instances and how we want to model healthier, productive, and helpful messages. Because oftentimes, what happens is um, those things get perpetuated, and
Yeah.
it's what becomes the norm. It becomes the status quo. And I think part of my objective in even writing this book is to challenge those ideas and help to inspire different narratives, which I think we see a lot of great examples of that, and even in how trends in social media have been shifting for meaningful, more purposeful content. I think is promising to support that idea. And but it takes being aware, it takes being models of those examples, and it takes advocating for change in those areas.
Tracee, before we close this interview, where can our interested audience grab a copy of your book?
Yes, they can grab it online through the Archway bookstore. They can also purchase it through Amazon online as well as Barnes and Noble online. Those are the three main areas that they can obtain it. Also through my website, which will link to those various sources as well.
We will make sure to make those links available on the description box of both the video version of this interview and the podcast version. So, guys, please do check it out. Now, Tracee, last question. If readers finish this book and realize that some of their own messages have not been as healthy, consistent, or helpful as they hoped, what would you encourage them to do next?
I think it's helpful to stop and think about where they want to be. And unfortunately, we all have made mistakes and not done or said the things that we would like to, and that is not great in the moment. But it's helpful for us to grow and to make shifts and change directions and where we would like to be. So for me, that's the challenge and the encouragement is that it challenges to think about words and actions and how we can do things differently, not just personally, but professionally, organizationally, as well as societally, and be able to start making those shifts and changes in a way that helps to produce the outcomes that we want to achieve. So I would say to think about that, but also what motivates and inspires. Because for some people, it is about course correcting, but also just going in the direction that you really want to be and to be effective in your life and work. So I hope that it does challenge, but it also encourages people to be in the positions that will allow them to do their best work. And I would say work loosely, not just professional work, but we're working every day, even in our personal lives, to do the best for our friends, our families, our loved
Yeah,
ones, but
definitely.
also those who we're accountable for, responsible for, if we're leaders or we're business owners. And so we all have an opportunity to do the work that we intend to do. And it takes just having some awareness and insight, but also really utilizing that motivation and inspiration for the work that we want to do to support those efforts, along with some of the other things I talk about in the book, which ultimately just supports enhancing exceptional services, which is part of my goal for the book is to improve and enhance services for people, whether it be nonprofits or for-profit companies, because we don't want that to be the exception. We want exceptional services to be the norm. And I think being able to use this as a framework to get there can be really helpful.
Tracee, it's been a pleasure having you on the show today. Thank you for sharing your story and the heart behind healthy messages.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I also want to give a big shout out to our awesome viewers and listeners for joining us for this interview. Stay tuned for more inspiring conversations on the Author Roundup. I'm Ray Walters. Join me next time as we explore the world of supported self publishing, one indie author at a time.